Brittany Rizzo, and this is My Only Friends. On today's episode, I sit down with my friend Adam Choit. I was on his podcast, People We Love, back in 2018, and I reached out to him to be my first official interview. In doing so, we have become good friends, and he has helped me so much navigating making a podcast. Adam is a filmmaker, producer, and podcaster, and we really had such a fun conversation. This episode reminds me of the Friends episode, the one with the resolutions. They correlate because I tried something completely new, learned something new, and had so many surprises along the way. And while it wasn't easy, something really great came out of it. You'll also hear the story about how I was in the bathroom with Jennifer Aniston. Anyways, here is my conversation with the incredibly kind Adam Choit. You were actually the first podcast I was ever on, the first interview I ever did on People We Love podcast.
Right.
That was like years ago, though, for me. What was that, 2018?
No, it was
2019.
Oh, maybe it was. Yeah, it was before 2020. Isn't it? In another lifetime. Yeah.
That does feel so long ago. How was the pandemic for you?
Oh, it was just fun. No, it's the lockdown. That's what it was. You survive. Take it day by day. I ended up making a list of everything I need to buy at the store. Something
like a prepper.
Yeah, I'm prepper aspirational. I aspire to be a prepper, but I did it's a Google document of just every supermarket item.
Wow. I'm good at making the list, but then going out and getting it all, I'm like, I'll get it eventually. And then that's really going to bite me in the ass one day.
You don't got to get everything every time.
That's true. Just get a flashlight this trip and then get batteries this trip. And then
those things you might want to get. Those things you might want to get together.
In general.
Yeah, the flashlight and the batteries, you may want to get it together.
Probably. So on your podcast, we talked about my love for Justin Timberlake.
We did.
And on this podcast, we talk about our love for TV shows. And you and I have both watched season 5, episode 4 of Cheers. You picked Cheers as your TV show.
We did.
Why'd you pick Cheers?
Well, thank you for having me on. By the way, I appreciate that. The parameters of what you kind of asked me to choose, it sounded like you were going for a comfort show, a familiar show, something that maybe some sort of escapism aspect.
For me, Friends is what kind of calms me down at night, or it kind of I always have these ruminating thoughts if I wake up in the middle of the night, and I will literally just turn on Friends, one eye open, searching for Friends on HBO Max. And then I can hear it and fall right back asleep, or just listen to it as I'm going to bed. And it's also I love having it on. If I have friends coming over, I love having it on in the background. It just is kind of that security blanket for me. So I'm interested to know why Cheers is that for you? Because Cheers is it's another Jimmy Burrows show, which is he directed a bunch of Friends and created Cheers. So it's got a special place in my heart too.
I think it is those kind of the words that I was describing earlier. Something is very comforting about the show and about all the people. And I'm sure we'll get into this in terms of the character and the setting and all that. I did take some notes and I mean, just getting into it, just from the theme song is just a bar song, and the lyrics of it are very heartwarming. You really one or you, or maybe just me, I'm sure many others, you want to be part of their gang, and you kind of feel like you are, even just how the bar is designed in the round, a perfect not in the round, but what do you call it, wrap around all the way around, the open layout, even that makes it have a different kind of a feel. I feel like if they chose something else, even the establishing shots at the beginning and after the theme and the credits of Boston, make you have a sort of homey, warm feeling.
Cozy.
Cozy, right? Yeah, of like the river and some of the skyline, and whether it's night shots or day shots, which I guess they use to establish the time of day for that as well. Just like that's all kind of cozy and warm as well. And the music, those music cues of I guess it's saxophone or horns or just like it's enough to like sort of carry you from scene to scene and give you those cozy feelings. Without it, like it's never like a hook. It's not like a hook where it's gonna like hook you in and rhythm and me. You're gonna like be distracted by the music and start to get into the music or anything like that.
Yeah,
but it's really tastefully done, and I wonder how many like how many different like saxophone cues or whatever do they have? Like do they must reuse them, but they all kind of do sound kind of different from one another. I could be mistaken about that.
No, they do.
Because I never pay that close attention to them, but enough so where you kind of hear that, like, at least they're definitely all different within an episode. I don't think they really repeat any, but they're all similar and bring those same kinds of feelings to.
I wonder too if they changed it over time, because I know in Friends the inserts of music are different in the beginning seasons than they are towards the end. It gets like it's weird, but. The Cheers theme song is one, amazing, but two, it's triggering for me because my very first solo in choir was the Cheers theme song and I missed the note and I will never. So every time I'm watching it, I'm like, like trying to perfect it. Like, see, I could have done that.
What part of the song is that? I'll put you on the spot again right now.
Oh my God.
And trigger you.
Oh my gosh. It's takes everything you've got. And I cracked that gut. And I was like, it was just so embarrassing. And we already had to wear the ugliest outfits. And I was just like, ugh. But because of that, like solo in choir, it was like all TV theme songs. So I know like the famous Mr. Ed and the Addams Family, like all these like full theme songs to sitcoms. What were some of your, in this specific Cheers episode, it's called Abnormal Psychology. What made you gravitate more to this episode?
I really did like grow up on all these classic 80s and 90s TV shows. And I think I've seen every single Cheers episode. And I was thinking about what episodes are the most memorable or my favorite. And I kind of just am like, let me see what the internet thinks about this. And I went to like top 10, top 25 lists. And that one definitely jumped out at me. Like just probably the memorable scenes with Frasier and Lilith is what immediately like comes to mind with that moment.
So good. I loved when she's like looking at Frasier and was like, well, his nostrils are flaring. No, of course he's in love. His nostrils are flaring. And Sam's like, what? Like, but it's so funny. And then she's like, and you're in love too. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I got the nostrils to prove it. Like just those like really tiny callbacks that they have for everything in those like 90s sitcoms, 80s, 90s sitcoms. It's just like so detailed and so like everything goes full circle so fast. But like if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss it. There's always a callback to literally everything. And I feel like there's not a ton of TV shows like that on air right now.
I agree. And it's so like organic and natural and comes out naturally to all the characters and their dialogue. You don't think for 1 second that you're watching a TV show, but you really are like engaged and invested in the characters and the story and kind of just going with it. And you believe, well, I believe that Woody is Woody and Sam is Sam. Like, and these are like, they feel very real, and you feel like you're kind of like there with them, almost to the point like where like I want to share my reaction to what's going on with the characters. Like they're all likable and relatable on a lot of different levels. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah,
more.
And I remember looking at Ted Danson in this episode. I mean, I watched all of Cheers. I think in 2018, I watched every single episode. I was like, I have to start from the beginning because I was watching The Good Place and I was obsessed with Ted Danson. And then I started Cheers from the very beginning. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm in love with Ted Danson. But watching him in this, like, even like when he's just like eating behind the bar and giving, like, he's so in ease and like so just relaxed into this role. And it is, like you said, you really feel like, I feel like there's certain shows where you're not thinking about how the sausage is being made. You're not hearing like, oh, that's a cut, or like, oh, they probably had to redo this part. Like, you're not thinking about all the behind the scenes stuff.
I take the acting for granted, certainly. Yeah. Especially and Ted Danson, perhaps even more so than others. Cause like Shelley Long and Diane, she's such an over the top character in a lot of ways. Whereas Sam is a lot more subtle in other ways, you feel like. And you just him being behind the bar, just like, I don't know, you think of yourself. I feel like as the viewer and just the way it's shot, you always, feel like you're a customer at the bar. There's no shots of really, just thinking of this now, like where you see a Sam or a bartender's point of view. There's a few different angles but it's always of the other patrons. It's like you are really one of the customers. You never really get behind the bar, and that's looking outwardly. Yeah, I never realized that as much. Yeah, I mean, obviously, because that might film if you see an audience or lights or something like that logistically. But I think that's a choice that they want the audience to be sort of on the outside looking in, and that makes you take. I feel like Sam and even Carla, Rhea. I think it's Rhea. You take, these characters a little bit for granted, like just how good they are at these roles. It's like you assume. So subtle. The little digs that Carla has are like, they're just so funny. And then there are times too when Norm comes walking in and his one-liners, they're just literally the best. And even Woody in that episode we were watching last night, he's so endearing, and like, it's so fun to they're all so different, but they all have this like common thing, it's fun to watch. And then what's interesting is I never watched Frasier. So I loved Frasier on Cheers, but I never like sat and watched Frasier, and everybody's like, oh, you have to. But I think Frasier bothered me on Cheers. So I was like, I don't want to watch 11 more seasons of this guy. Yeah. Were you a Frasier fan? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I didn't really watch Cheers. I watched Cheers a little bit growing up, and then you just more like the Nick at Night, like in college, I got into Cheers, and I guess Frasier probably around the same time. I think after a little bit after, but I pretty much seen most Frasier episodes too. I mean, Frasier might be my favorite character on Cheers, and I guess so of any sitcom character. If I liked Frasier too, it wasn't never my favorite show, but it was definitely one of my favorites. I guess. Why would you say Frasier is your favorite? Do you relate to him the most, or? I think so in some ways, because I'm not the Ted Danson character. That's not me. We know that, and I don't think I'm the Cliff character either. So you kind of have to fall if you're like a dude, I think you have to fall somewhere in between Cliff and Sam. And maybe I'm probably a little bit more Frasier than Norm. You overanalyze things a lot. I think so. I can relate to, I'm not like a big beer drinker. So like, I think I can relate to Frasier, I think a little bit more, but I think that's the beauty of the show, is that you really do relate to all the characters. Everyone can find something to relate to the characters about, even like just Carla being like a short and feisty character, and like sweet. That's something. Yeah, I can relate a little bit to that too. Yeah. And that is as well. I said I'm not Cliff and I'm not the Ted Danson Sam character, but like, there's certainly been embarrassing moments where I'm the dorkiest person in the room and saying the thing that annoys people and does the wrong, stupid, embarrassing thing. Like, so I think everybody can relate to Cliff for sure. And, if you want to be like Sam, you can certainly relate to him, at least on some level, being a dude who's into sports and all that kind of stuff, and wanting to be, liked by everyone is something that everybody can, I think that's what is so like, with these type of ensemble casts, is like you see yourself in a little piece of you in everybody. And so that's why you're like, oh, I would fit in with this group. And then like you genuinely think like, oh, well, I could be friends with them, or I could go to this bar and have a drink. I think that's why like like I don't really have a favorite movie, but like I do I have really like love Back to the Future, like growing up until now, and rewatching it every once in a while. And I think part of that is because like the three main male characters are all very different from each other, but there's something very likable and relatable, and like you want to be as like. You want to be kind of as smart as George McFly, but you want to be as cool as Marty McFly, and you want to be as like individualistic, eccentric, creative as Doc Brown. Like, and I think there's different things about those characters that are.
Well, it's good that you brought this up because I've never seen Back to the Future.
Yeah,
I know. It's referenced so much. I feel like I've seen bits and pieces of Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's
never seen it.
People will give you shit for that, certainly more than I'm going to, because I'm not into that game, because like everyone could play that game. It's like you haven't seen XYZ thing that everyone else has seen.
Right.
Like everyone's been, especially as like we all get older, and there's like more classic type films that are from the 80s, 90s, and 2000, early 2000s. Like people refer to, modern classic or modern classic TV shows. So I don't hold that against people, but other people will and would. Yeah.
And I will say, I will watch. The past 5 years has been like the land of the reboot and revival. So when the revivals or reboots come out, I always go back to watch the original and before I watch that one. So I know like, oh, well, are they paying homage to this or did they fall short? So, but Back to the Future is one that is referenced so much. Did you get hooked on any type of shows? Like, I feel like a lot of people during the pandemic got hooked on a lot of shows, like old shows.
I would say more podcasts and music is kind of what I've where I've dove. And I mean, just to name one podcast that I really like and like streaming show, Pat McAfee. I don't know if you know him. He was an NFL football player. He was a punter, and he started.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not up my alley. I know.
Yeah, no. This is not up your alley. Watch Back to the Future though. You'll enjoy that. But this is more like it's talk show, like a morning 2-3 hour talk show, but it's just like dudes and it's very casual, but it's really well produced, and he's a really likable guy, and it's high energy and positive, and has this like independent streak to it, like because they totally support it on YouTube. There's like 40,000 people watching it live every morning, and they have their own language and world, and like you feel like you're part of that. You feel like you're one of the people in there, like in their living room studio, like hanging out, like really has that vibe. But they gained more and more credibility, like over their time, building the show. The dude made like a giant deal with DraftKings or FanDuel, whatever it is, for like 35 million a year or something, like crazy deal, like just from this thing that he built. But like, yeah, so that would be someone. A lot of like these podcasters and people like that make you feel like you're in the space with them. It's like you feel like you're part of the conversation.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And sometimes are on Twitter.
Yeah, I noticed that that's like a reoccurring theme for probably both of us, is like feeling like you're a part of something.
Sure.
Which is like really interesting to think about, like why we so badly want to feel like we're not so badly. But I know for me, I'm like, I love feeling like I love having people over. And when I like couldn't do that during the pandemic and like get together with people, I love game nights. I love being the hostess. Like, that's the Monica in me. And like, I was just telling a friend of mine where I'm like, I get sleepy when I'm around my close friends, but it's because I'm calm and I feel like at ease. And that's like the same thing with friends. So it's definitely interesting that both of us are like, oh yeah, because it makes you feel a part of something.
Sure.
So a lot of with this podcast is I wanted to like highlight what they go to when their mental health is kind of on shaky ground, or like what kind of mental health that you deal with. And like, so is there like a specific thing when you're like looking for those podcasts or looking for music or looking for a new TV show? Is there like something in you that goes like, oh, I'm feeling an onset of this, I want to escape?
I don't think it's anything clinical. I don't think it's anything conscious for me, but I do think that's the role that these podcasts and entertainment, and it's like I think if there's like a fine line between like escapism and not that escapism has to have like a negative connotation even to it, and like just something that's like helpful to one's mental health or whatever. But no, I think it's like the things we're talking about, like wanting to be part of something, and as like an antidote to, I guess, some loneliness or whatever the case, that kind of thing, feelings of isolation for that one is, experiencing, no matter what the external things and environment are going on in the world around you. Those are natural feelings for, I think, all of us to have. And I think entertainment can provide certainly a healthy distraction. And when it's done, in a high quality way, you get something like Cheers that really scratches that itch, and perhaps without one even knowing it. Like want, it's sitcoms. The whole point of it is to get hooked in and to like watch episode after episode and
just shut your brain off for a second. Right.
I feel like we live in our own heads a lot. And I think when you can connect with another art form, it kind of gets you maybe a little bit outside of yourself, but also relating in some like some healthy balance between those ideas, perhaps.
Like even me today, like all day today, I've been having like my therapist will be like, when you have those thoughts, you have to say stop out loud, or you say, whoa. Like when I'm having these thoughts, like if I were to say them out loud, how would somebody react? They'd be like, whoa. So I'm like in my car going, whoa, like a lunatic. But it's like, I don't know if you have those thoughts where you're like, okay, how do I stop these? Is there like a certain song that you go to that like really clears your mind?
If you're saying if I'm having just any sort of negative thoughts or negative thought patterns, I don't know if it's a song, but I think listening to music is certainly something that could be effective in dealing with that. I think it's more like I guess I do have certain mantras maybe that are helpful and things I do tell myself to snap out of, like, depending on what the negative thought is. And sometimes maybe it is good to maybe not dwell in a negative thought, but dealing with a negative emotion is sometimes essential to embrace and feel for some period of time in order to deal with it and process it. But if you're having a negative thought, I guess negative thoughts and negative emotions are very different things. Negative thoughts you probably do want to avoid and get rid of as quickly as possible. Whereas negative emotions you may need to deal with.
Yeah, that's one of those things you gotta feel. What's your mantra? Let's hear it.
I mean, it's more like we're not doing this right now. Just telling myself we're not doing this right now. Or I mean, I just feel like I have too many things to do, so I'll just be like, we can't do this right now. Like, I don't know.
My best friend and I will say, we got shit to do. Like, we got shit to do.
Right.
Like, you can't entertain that thought. We got shit to do.
It's not helpful.
Is there like a habit, healthy or unhealthy, that you've picked up on from a TV show at all?
I don't know, other than just maybe watching it too much instead of like maybe too much of my childhood was spent watching television instead of doing something more productive. But then again, look, I ended up working in, in LA and media and entertainment business and all that. So perhaps things do make sense. You're saying, has TV been a negative influence on me? Is that what you're asking?
No, like, like there are certain things that characters do, like little habits that they have that you pick up on and you don't realize it, kind of. Like for me, when I like watch certain shows, when I watched New Girl like crazy one year, I probably watched it twice all the way through. And I would notice that if I watched too much of it, then like my cadence would get like the same as Schmidt's, where it's like really fast, like all the time. And like, he has this really high inflection on certain words. And I was like, wow, like I am like a sponge though. Like I very much absorb and become the things that are around me. I'm so preachy about you are what you hang out with and like what you consume and everything. Cause I'm very like sensitive to a lot of things. Like if I watch something scary, I'm having really bad thoughts for a while. And I have to, again, go like, we got shit to do. I don't have time for that. But so I was just wondering if I'm like the only person who does that, or if you do that too.
No, people talk like characters, people quote characters. And just like thinking back to when I was younger, I did like act like Kramer and talk like Kramer at school.
Did you?
For some period of time, I like picked up on a lot of mannerisms or thought I did or did. And then maybe Seinfeld even like talked to started. I'm like, oh, I'm going to jump to this character now and kind of like just talk like this character and his inflection for a while. And
where did you grow up?
Long Island. And then obviously half the school was back in my day was talking the guys were talking like Beavis and Butthead for like, you know, a few years straight. Like every guy in school was doing that, some more than others. So I think that's people become a victim of that, not a victim per se of that, you know, we're more prone to that when you're younger, I think, to just really, you know, people are basically babies, kids are sponges and they repeat everything. And I think as you grow older, you know, there's a lot to that still. And I guess that's how things become part of culture is like, you know, people repeating phrases and mannerisms and whatnot. Is there a quote from a movie or a TV show that you say often in your life? I don't know. Probably, I'm sure. Nothing immediately is coming to mind, but it'll come to me like in 3 hours from now after we're done.
Perfect. Just text it to me.
Sounds good.
That's so funny. Let's see. Is there like a certain scene that you like? So you're a writer and are you an actor as well?
No.
So you like the behind the scenes stuff more?
Sure. I mean, I might want to try acting something at some point.
You do stand up, didn't you?
I'm just a fan and I produced a few shows.
You produced a few shows.
Yeah.
Okay, so like as a writer, what do you like writing? I like comedy, drama.
Yeah, I like to write comedy, but it doesn't always come out as comedy, and sometimes it comes out in a different tone. Like this short film that I wrote and directed, I intended it to be humorous, more like a Idiocracy type of a story. Ended up being more like a Black Mirror episode, and it took me a while to get to that point in my head. But like there is something to be said for what's on your head and then what gets written compared to what gets shot. And what gets shot is that's your movie, that's your film, TV show, that's your project, and you can only like take it in a direction, you know, that's possible based on what was actually recorded. So it's like I kind of have to kind of let the film and let these projects be what they want to be. Like, and I think no creative person really wants to be boxed into anything, even if they choose to pursue comedy only or drama only or sci-fi only.
Well, and it's so subjective, like with comedy and drama, where it's like, you know, some things that people think are really heavy are also sometimes really funny to other people and vice versa. Like not everybody's going to laugh at the same subject matter unless you've like gone through it and you can really understand like why it's funny, you know? What was like when you were younger, was there a specific like TV show or movie where you were like, oh, I want to do this, I want to be a writer? I think
Back to the Future was something that it was a film that I really liked. I think it was
you should have made me watch Back to the Future.
Just off the top of my head, but I liked Rocky. I liked kind of some of these underdog stories and some of these modern classic movies, you know, that had sort of a realism aspect to them, even if they were, you know, sort of dipped into other genres, kind of a like magical realism stuff. I've always kind of gravitated toward, like, I guess like Big, like is a great movie. That's kind of like,
I watched that for the first time during COVID. I was like obsessed with Tom Hanks during lockdown for some reason. Well, not for some reason, he's amazing, but Big was so good. Yeah.
Like those types of movies. I think people always want to see those types of movies. So I find that stuff inspiring, and I kind of grew up on that stuff. And I mean, I watched The Simpsons, like Cheers. I don't know that Cheers is my favorite TV show of all time. I'd probably put Seinfeld ahead of it. There's this show, Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist. It was an animated show on
I've never heard of
Comedy Central for a while. It was like squiggly cartoon. You probably like that show too. It might take a minute to get used to, but basically it's this like psychiatrist, and he's talking to patients who are all comedians and actors and creative types, and they're on his couch and they're telling him about their problems, which kind of is their stand-up in a sense. So, but as they're telling their stand-ups / problems, there's like, it's an animated show, so they have like either a thought bubble with an animation, or they cut to like what being described, like you see it on screen, and it's like a really cool format. And his like man-child son lives with him, and he's divorced, and they have like a funny dynamic. And the his secretary, administrative assistant, or whatever, she's a great character, very stoic, deadpan, always talking shit on him. Voiced by Laura Silverman, you know her, an actress, Sarah Silverman's sister.
Oh,
another comedian.
Nice. Yeah, Sarah Silverman, great.
Yeah, that might be my favorite show of all time. Maybe the funniest one of all time. But it is kind of oranges and apples when you compare Cheers to Seinfeld to Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist. They all kind of do. They all kind of like do. They are very different. So I guess they satisfy that like comedy that I'm into, like in 3 different ways. Whereas Seinfeld is like the most. I like it. I guess Jewish is the word, maybe. New York Jewish humor, like very everyday, like, I don't know, a little bit lighter in some regards. And then, I mean, I love South Park and I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love stuff that's, I guess, a little bit more edgy in some regard. So I feel like those, I have like a favorite of these different types of shows, but there was the joke on South Park, how like about, you know, the Simpsons already did it. Like the Simpsons has kind of done everything. Which is true in a lot of ways. The Simpsons has kind of like done everything, and you can trace everything kind of back to the Simpsons. But then you could trace the Simpsons back to like these like, you know, 50s sitcom, the Honey I'm Home,
right?
You know, type whatever. Those sitcoms are kind of like Flintstone. Like all this stuff is like.
Yeah, I think all of these.
The wheel's been reinvented a lot in some ways, but creatively.
I mean, even watching like news shows now, I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be like the Ross and Rachel of it all? Like you're constantly comparing like the older shows and the newer shows together, but there are like so many similarities when it comes to like sitcoms for sure in that sense. But that therapist thing sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, if you can get used to how it looks on screen, I think it's hilarious. Like, what you'll see a lot of celebrities and actors and comedians that like, you know, oh, this is the Bob Saget episode, or this is the Sarah Silverman episode. Dave Chappelle was on it. Like he had like a lot of big names.
I can't believe I've never heard of this before.
I can't believe it's. I wonder what platform it's on right now. I can't imagine it's not available somewhere, even if just on like. I mean, I think a lot of it's on YouTube. You can hear me typing right now.
Yeah.
That's all right. We're on a reality show here.
Exactly. It's Big Brother.
Realism. Yeah, I don't know where it's on. I'm sure it's on like, if not YouTube, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I liked a lot of different shows. But Cheers was kind of its own thing. And I think the best answer to your question, if I want like something sort of comforting, although Seinfeld and other shows are good and could feel that escapism and comforting aspect to it, but it's different when you're you feel like you're at the bar.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I guess that's how Friends is too. You feel like you're like sitting in the coffee shop with them or sitting in the apartment with them. I mean, I literally made my apartment. You can see I have the Friends door. It's purple with the yellow door frame.
Have you met the entire cast?
Oh my gosh, no. I met Jennifer Aniston and I met Courtney Cox. Both at the dentist. We go to the same dentist. And
you could tell me off recording who your dentist is, because this is a very LA thing, because I might name drop during my dental talk too as well, and
it was pretty wild. Jennifer Aniston came into the bathroom, and then I was like, "Hi," and she was like, "Hi," and I was like, "Oh my god, Jennifer Aniston's just peeing behind me." Yeah, like. Goes in the stall and I'm washing my hands and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, what do I do right now? I was like, I can't just stand in here and listen to her go to the bathroom. Like, that's so weird.
Keep washing your hands.
I also had a mask on that said Central Perk because that's my mask. And I was like, I walked out of the bathroom and then there was like a big security guard. And I immediately was like, damn, I should have stayed in the bathroom because now he's going to be like, you're like, because I said hi to her and I asked her for a picture. She was so unbelievably nice, but he was like, sorry, she can't do pictures. And I was like, okay, well, it was just so nice to meet you. And she looked at my mask and was like, oh, like completely Rachel Green. And I mean, I just remember her walking around the corner because I walked out of the bathroom and I had to stand in front of the elevators and she had to pass me to go back into the dentist office. And I just remember her walking around the corner and it was like, whoosh, like, I swear, like wind blew in her face, and she was like so beautiful. And she just had this like presence, like this undeniable energy as she walked. I was like there's something like you can't describe about her. I mean, she's like my idol. She's my North Star in everything I do. So, but she was so incredibly nice. And I replayed the instance back in my head over and over again, because I'm like, oh, I should have said this. I could have said this. But it was such a stop and go like interaction of like, she was late for her appointment and I was trying to talk to her and she was trying to give me like a moment because she knew that I was a fan, and she didn't want to disappoint me, but she knew she had to go. So it was like
she, I'm sure, is a professional at handling it. And I've seen giving the fan just enough time where it's like, yeah, how to do that gracefully.
Yeah. And she was so unbelievably nice. And I was just like, all right, well, I love you and thank you. And I hope you have a good day. She was like, it was nice meeting you. And like walked into the door.
Oh yeah. It was nice meeting you is how they end the conversation.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I got in the elevator and I just kind of felt like out of body. Like I didn't really have an emotion. I don't know if I had, like, I was kind of, I think because I had built it up in my head so much of what it would be like if I ever met her. And that wasn't how it was. I was like, oh, weird. Like I've always wanted to be like, I want to tell her this and I want to tell her that. And
go on.
Well, then when I got in my car and I told my mom, I was like, I just met Jennifer Aniston, and I burst into tears.
Oh boy.
I was like, oh my God. I just met Jennifer Aniston and she was nice. Like she wasn't mean. She wasn't like, like I've run into some celebrities like down the street where I've just been like, hi. And they give me a dirty ass look. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not watching your movie anymore. But that's we won't say those names on
Did you what did you actually say? Did you say you were a fan or something like that? Did you say well, she knew you were a fan. What did you actually say? I
was like, she kept walking. Well, here's the thing. I came out of there and I stood by the elevator and I was like, okay, do I want to do this? Do I want to meet her? Do I want to talk to her? And I really like thought about it because I'm like, if this doesn't go well, I'm going to have to repaint my house. Like I don't want this to like ruin my like experience of Friends. I don't want to be like, man, I met her and it was like so awful. And then she came walking around the corner. I was like, I'm so sorry, like to bother you. Like, do you are you running late? Like, do you have a second? She was like, I am running late. And I was like, well, we have a mutual friend. And so I was like, how do I keep her? How do I keep her in this conversation? And
right.
Like,
you want to keep it going. You don't want the ride to be over.
Exactly.
Are we going to be friends now? There's a chance if you just talk to me for 1 minute longer that you'll want to follow me and we're going to hang out, right?
Exactly.
It's possible. I'm a person, you're a person.
I'm coming over for dinner, Jen. Don't worry.
Right. Not this week, but like next week,
And so I was like, because when I had saw her, I texted our mutual friend. I was like, oh my God, she just walked into the bathroom. What do I do? And like, cause I was like, I don't want to bother her. Like, is she open to like meeting people? Does she have like, So I was like, oh, I just texted them. Like we always talk about you and like, they know how much I love you. I also want to protect their privacy. She was like, oh, amazing. And I was like, can we take a picture and send it? And that's when they were like, no, she can't do pictures. So I was like, all right, well, it's okay. Like, I really.
I was going to say, you expressed that you were a fan and that's all that matters. I think so you have I don't think you should have any regrets based on what you're telling me.
No, like, I definitely.
You talked to her, she got the sense that you're a fan. You're wearing the thing, the mask with the.
Yeah. I think for me, I was like, damn, why did I ask for a picture? Like, why did I care so much to get a picture? Like,
right. When you get the no for a picture, it's like you feel like, then I didn't want to be I'm not one of those fans.
Yeah. Like I'm not that person.
Yeah.
But also like, I manifested every day that I will run into her again or work with her on some level. But like, I don't know if I'm ever going to see her again. My parents aren't going to believe me that Jennifer Aniston is right next to me. You know what I mean?
She's a picture worthy celebrity. What about an autograph? You may not have the tools or anything. You may not have like something to sign or sign with in that moment. And you might get a no for that too.
Yeah. Well,
But I get you going for a Jennifer Aniston picture. If there was some other celebrity or some other like public figure, like, and I'm sure you're like, oh, I don't need to ask for that. Like, but there's some people who collect those and will just ask for anyone who's moderately known to want to gather.
I know. I'm like, damn, I should have had her sign my mask. If only I had a Sharpie on me.
Yeah. You got to carry one on you. She might have it. You were not in the bathroom. If you were like meet her by her car, she probably did a bunch of headshots and Sharpies in her car.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Well, what was funny is that, so I have a friend who works in that dental office, and she called me after, and she was like, oh my gosh, when Jen came walking in, she said something about you. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
And she was like, because it was the strangest thing. There was this little girl. And like, I was like, she called me a little girl, like so happy that she like, even like, she was like,
what is she, 6 feet tall, Jennifer Aniston? Taller than you?
Well, she's actually
5'5", 5'6".
I'm 5'1", so anybody is taller than me at this point.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I try not to beat myself up about it, but I'm just like,
Jennifer Aniston's doing it for you.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, it was a good experience. It's always amazing to think. And like, look, I was just at the dentist 2 days ago, and I was in that same bathroom, and I was like, I'm peeing on the same toilet Jennifer Aniston once peed on.
What are we gonna do with you? You know what you got to do? You know what you got to do? You got to ask your dentist office if you can get the seat. If you can, like, have it, bring you,
unhinge it.
Yeah, and then you hang it on your wall as I hope Jennifer Aniston, well, I do hope she's listening to this, but
oh God,
but I hope her reaction is positive.
If she is, I love you.
Yeah. Oh man. I will say that if I meet Ted Danson or Jason Alexander in a bathroom and they end up not happy with me and getting mad at me, I'll still watch their shows.
Yeah.
Look, you can be as mean to me as you want. I'll still watch. Maybe not as you want, but
yeah. I mean, I think for me, like with Jennifer Aniston, like I think because I idolize her so much, it would like crush you to know that your idol is like not how they're portrayed on TV, but or like in her interviews or, America's sweetheart, but she 100% is all of those things.
She has a good reputation. I do know that, like, as far as I understand. I mean, that, like, no, I mean, that's what I, as far as I know.
But like, there was another actress that I saw on the street who was not very nice to me. And I was just like, okay, I'll still watch her stuff, but I'm not racing to the theaters. Yeah, you don't
know what people are also going through that day at any particular moment in their lives as well. And I think people do also forget that not every actor in Hollywood, not every person who works in the entertainment industry is a complete asshole. Some people are actually nice and, maybe have bad moments here and there. So, I mean, I try to give the benefit of the doubt to people, whether they are famous or not. But I prefer they be nice to me. I don't really bother anyone anyway. For the most part.
Like, I mean, people have this thing about Leah Michele. I don't know if you've seen on the internet, like people just think she's like so mean, not nice, blah, blah, blah. She actually used to be a client of mine years ago. And at the salon, nicest person I've ever met, would come give me a hug every time. Thank you so much, Brittany. Her mom would come in. I'd see her walking down the street. She'd smile at me, like, so nice. And then all these things came out about how mean she was. And I'm like, what? Like, different environments, I'm sure.
Yeah, also, people have different experiences. I mean, it's complicated, I guess.
Who's the one person that you would be like really starstruck to meet?
Because I feel like in some ways I've already like had a lot of or a few bucket list interactions. I host that podcast, Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, the Unofficial Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, which is another podcast about that I do about my favorite band. I have a lot of their stuff behind me, if you can see their albums and stuff. And I met pretty much everyone in that band, and I'm working towards booking them on my show. So like, they're actually really down to earth people. And like, they say like, oh, you don't want to meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you. This was like the total opposite of that. And I can't be any more content with like how my interactions with everyone in that band. They were a 12-piece band led by Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi, a husband and wife duo. she's the lead singer and plays guitar, and he plays lead guitar and is the band leader. And
so you have a whole podcast dedicated to them?
Yeah, a fan podcast all about them. Yeah.
That is amazing.
I started that in 2020. That's I guess a little bit newer or more recent, or just after the other.
Maybe I changed this podcast completely to just dedicate it to Jennifer Aniston.
Maybe. You know what I wanted to ask you? We're jumping all over the place. I hope that's okay. I wanted to ask you how engaged you are in like the subculture of Friends and all that. Like, are you in different like Facebook groups and fan groups, and do you go to conventions and all that? Are you part of a community, or are you just someone who watches the show and kind of just?
I am in one Facebook fan group, and that's about it. I think some people take it not overboard, but like for me, it's like, you know, I have friend stuff around my house. And at first it was very subtle, you know, like I have the door frame, and then I have like a picture of the couch that says, I'll be there for you. And then like a frame of like a sketch of Monica's kitchen in my apartment. But then a lot of people started getting me like signs and mugs and like the really like fan kind of memorabilia, not like the subtle memorabilia, like the stuff and I appreciate all of it all the time, but like I don't need a giant sign that says pivot. I don't need, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I think that there are definitely people out there who like, I feel like I'm obsessed with it in a completely different way, where it really feels like I know these people. Like, no, they're my friends. You know what I mean?
I don't know that that's a different way than the other fans, but in your own way, I can see that. And I guess I just asked that because like being part of some different like subcultures, it's fun. I find it fun and cool to connect with different people that you have, like, you know, different kinds of people that you have this common interest with. But with any subculture, I guess you're gonna get like people who are like it's not cool, I guess. And I was curious if you get that like in the Friends world as and you kind of did touch on it a little bit, like just like some of the people who maybe go overboard in a way.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna get a tattoo of like Unagi or like
the Hellcast face.
Yeah, just like a giant smelly cat right here. Like I'm not gonna go and do that. Are you besides the podcast remind me of their name again?
Tedeschi Trucks Band.
Tedeschi.
Susan Tedeschi. It's Italian. Yeah. Pronunciation.
Tedeschi Truck Band?
Trucks.
Susan
Tedeschi is the lead singer and guitar player, and Derek Trucks is her husband, and he sings and is the band leader. And
how did you discover them? Because I feel like that's not a well-known, like, are they really well-known? Or am I living under a rock?
I wouldn't say you're living under a rock. They're just not like super duper mainstream top 40. They're a blues rock soul band that has like more of a 70s, even 60s eclectic vibe. But I wouldn't say that exclusively, but they cover a lot of different genres. They play covers. They put out like 5 albums now. I could talk about them forever, but I was always into that kind of music. And Derek Trucks plays slide guitar. I don't know if you're familiar where you put that little pill bottle on your finger and you slide it up and down. And it kind of sounds like a human voice a little bit. And I love that style of playing. And I fiddled around with a little bit like, I guess it's 10, 12 years ago at this point. And my dad's like, you should check out Derek Trucks. And I'd heard the name, and he played with the Allman Brothers Band, who you may have heard of, a legendary Southern rock band. And he played with them when he was like in his 20s. So I knew their hits, and for some reason, I never really got hardcore into the Allman Brothers. But my dad's like, you should check out Derek Trucks. And so right around when he formed this band with his wife, Tedeschi Trucks Band, she had a solo career. He had a solo band and played with the Allman Brothers. So right around the time they formed, I kind of discovered him and her and their music and got more into the Allman Brothers and her solo career. And like since late 2010, 2011, I've just got more and more into them to the point where was in all the Facebook groups, and I'm going to more and more shows a year and listening to all the live stuff and researching more about them and reading about them and learning more about the other members in the band who are all super talented, and many who have had their own like careers and achievements as well. And I just got more and more into it to the point where it's like, I'm going to start this podcast about them.
I was thinking about that today. Like, I'm like, am I always going to be obsessed with Friends? But I think it's like reached, like, it's like they say if you've been friends for somebody with like for 7 years, then you're in it for life. So do you ever think about that? Like,
yes, I do think about it. Am I going to be listening to the Allman Brothers when I'm like 90 years old? Like these sort of like very intense, emotional, like somewhat like hard rock, bluesy, like even like stonery type songs. I was thinking maybe not, but like that's why I think Tedeschi Trucks Band and Allman Brothers are so great, because maybe I won't be listening to every song of their catalog, but they do have enough songs that are mellow or different or even jazzier and instrumental stuff where like I do think like it'll sustain me. I'll find something. Like same thing with like the Rolling Stones, why they're one of my favorite bands. Like probably were my favorite band pre Tedeschi Trucks Band.
Really?
Just because they play their music covers so many, like I feel like I love rock and roll and blues especially, and that's kind of like what they are more than anything, but they do have enough little country songs and ballads and psychedelic things where it's like you get a little bit of everything with their music.
Did you see them while they were here in LA?
The Stones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them 2-3 times.
Is it like so amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have seen them in 1973 or even earlier than that. Might have been more ideal, but they have such great songs, like that definitely sustains you, and they were talented still and to perform well. I mean, I didn't love the crowd, I guess, but LA crowds are not always. LA crowds are kind of
boring. Like I remember I went to a Justin Timberlake concert out here, and my girlfriend who I went with her, and we were like the only ones like standing up and dancing, and everybody else.
People are pretentious. People are a little pretentious. They're too cool for school to either stand or dance or be silly or have fun or just listen to the music and not talk over it. And you kind of like get that at comedy shows sometimes. Like people don't want to hesitant to like laugh or like snooty in a lot of ways as well. I get if you're like, you don't want to like, if you're like a manager, like you're scouting something, you might not want to like play your hand, but that's not everyone. That's just a few people in a room. I
don't think there's like 200 managers and like publicists just
we can't laugh because we don't want to.
It is interesting though. I always like to be the person who gives the permission for other people to laugh in a movie, like, because some people think things are funny, but they're not laughing because they're self-conscious. And like, I probably am it depends on what you're into, I guess, but I'm probably one of the worst people to go see a movie with if it's like intense or suspenseful or action, because I am so vocal, and a lot of it, like, it's like, I can't control it sometimes because I'm genuinely scared. Like I just saw Bullet Train, and that movie was so good, but I was like, very, very audible throughout the entire movie. And I'm like, oh my God, like, or I'm just like, I'm laughing so hard and I'm like, wow, I'm really like, there's like one other person in this experience with me. Where like my girlfriend who was with me, she was like, I was like, were you getting mad that I was like squeezing your arm? Cause I was like, oh my God. And she was like, no, I was just really stressed out. So I was like shutting down. So it's interesting how people are so different in movies. That's what made me want to do this podcast, is because it's like, there's so many, at a concert, someone could be having the time of their life, but just like sitting there tapping their foot. You know what I mean? Where like, I'm the girl that's like, I've had literally people turn around and like go like this with their ear, like cover their ear at a Justin Timberlake concert. Cause I was screaming so loud. I'm like, I'm there. I spent the money to be here. I put the time and effort to come here. I'm making every moment of it count.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, people react to these experiences in different ways. I guess that's what makes like the world go around, and it doesn't mean one person's enjoying it more than another. Like I guess if you're jumping up and down, you may be enjoying it more than the person who's just kind of sitting there. But again, people appreciate things in different ways. Yeah,
that's very true. Okay, so tell me about the short film you wrote.
Oh, it's called The Edited, and let's see if I can do my elevator pitch, my spiel here.
Let's hear it.
But it's a dystopian psychological satire taking place in the near future about a earnest misfit girl who enters a new high school in a new part of the country, and she finds it's a very strange school where they literally edit history, literature, science. They teach that Big Brother was actually the hero of 1984. They teach that it's the Declaration of Dependence on the powers that be in this world. So we sort of wonder as we're watching this story unfold, will this new pupil fight for truth, or will she fall victim to this sort of cult-like environment around her. And I think that's the film that I made ultimately.
That is really interesting. And it's also kind of what is happening in
it
world.
is more prescient and than I thought it was going to be, even when I wrote it pre 2020, like in 2019. And in some ways, in many ways, for sure, I do not take certain elements in the story far enough, but nevertheless, it's definitely very, very current in that way, which is why I'm like eager to get it out there, which, you know, it will be soon. So I would say definitely follow my YouTube channel, Adam Choit. If you just search for that on YouTube, you'll definitely find me. I don't have much up there right now, but I'm going to be posting clips soon, and I'll announce a date, shooting for next month in October to get this thing out. Also, the editedmovie.com is the website for that. So you can definitely follow all things related to the movie on there. There's a trailer up there and more information and a cast list and everything like that.
That's amazing. So it's a finished product.
Yeah, the film is done. Yeah, no, I'm excited to get it out there. And I was exploring some different distribution possibilities and whatnot. But I think we're at a point where it's like, I just want to get this out there already and do my best to market it and promote it. And I want to develop a feature film for it. That's what I'm working on right now. To, you know, getting a story together. I want to keep going with something in this world. It's very relevant.
Yeah, it is very relevant. I think that is what it's like. It's like when we get these ideas, like you want to just get them out there because you're like, I need this to get done. But then you're like, okay, how do I like fine tune it, and how do I make it like exactly how I want it to be without jumping the gun and putting the cart before the horse? I find that's like one of my biggest problems when I do get an idea. I'm like, okay, but I just want to do this. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't think any of this through. It does.
And kind of, I think what you're describing is something that I deal with. It's like you kind of picture the way you want something to be in your head, like 3 months ahead. You're like, oh, in my mind, my movie's out. In your mind, I'm already 25 episodes into my podcast in the groove and I know how to edit perfectly and all this stuff. But you do have to like sort of just surrender to the process, submit to the process.
Exactly.
Go through the process, whatever mantra, whatever you want to tell yourself. You just have to kind of like sit down and just like
let it be what it's going to be,
and be patient with yourself through learning new things, and just something like, a little every day is what I tell myself, or like check something off the list. You know, do what I'll ask myself, what should I work on right now, and then I'll be like anything. Do anything. Look at myself. I'll be like, do any of these things.
Literally like the first 25 minutes of you and I talking, I was like, I'm tanking this. I'm horrible at this. Like, why did I think I could do this? Like, I'm just beating the shit out of myself the whole time of like, what are you doing? Like, you're not making any sense. And then I literally was like, okay, Brittany, you have to relax and be present and stop. Like, and then it was like, oh, then the conversation goes somewhere, and then you're having this conversation. And just because it's not going how you thought it was going to go doesn't mean it's not going good.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing good. I think just the fact that we've been talking for a while. I'm not sure exactly what time we started. It's probably running longer than you intended, but
now, do you have that thing though? Like some people, like I saw there was like a study that came out. Some people don't have an inner monologue in their head. Like some people don't hear the thoughts.
I think what you're saying is some people out there aren't good at thinking. And I agree. That's what
it was like some people can just like
many
people just shut off their brain on a daily basis. I'm going to find this article and
I don't know if the brain is on
ever, but like, I'm constantly like, there's always, but then the other side of that could go, well, then she's crazy because she's always got voices in her head. You know what I mean? So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do live alone right now, and
well, you just looked to the side as if you didn't. So that was
I was double checking. No, because I'm thinking about myself. You know, especially during when I first started doing more of the work from home thing. And I kind of made the agreement with myself that if this is going to work, I have to allow myself to talk out loud, like to nobody. Like, it doesn't make you crazy to like do that. It's called like thinking out loud, and there's like nothing like wrong with that. And
That's true.
And I don't talk out loud to myself in public too often, so it's like I think it's okay.
I do. I think I just did it today at Target. Now that I think about it, I was leaving Target and the girl was like, have a good day. And I was like, you too. And I was like, those people behind me got way too close to me. And I was just like, but I said it out loud as I was walking. Like, I think that maybe that's a big flaw of mine, because these people like were right behind me, like grabbing stuff and like almost like touched my shoulder. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just because COVID's over, that doesn't mean you could, not over, but like, just because we don't have to wear masks and be 6 feet apart doesn't mean I want you like to give you a piggyback ride. Yeah. But I'm like, oh, that's when I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that out loud. I was like, God, why are these people so close to me?
Sometimes I'll be really high or something and I'll be in my head, my own thought. And I'll question whether I said something out loud or not. I'll be like, did I say that thought out loud or not? I'm not like 100% sure if I actually said that or not.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's not movies or podcasts or TV or music, what do you do to shut your brain off? What do you do in your free time? Like, what's a hobby? Like, do you play any sports? Are you part of do you like to golf? I don't know if people still golf. Do people golf in LA?
Sure. I don't golf, not me, but what do I like to shut off my brain? I don't know if it's ever really shut off, but I mean, if you're just asking me, what do I like to do? I like to also play guitar and play music a little bit. That's fun. I actually like to rollerblade, inline skate and ice skate. And I used to play hockey. And I do that sometimes for exercise. Like, I feel like if I lived on like Venice Beach or Santa Monica, I would actually like fit in with the people over there in the sense that there's more people inline skating on the boardwalk and pier or whatever than there are in the suburbs of Sherman Oaks. But nevertheless, I do like that, and I find that's like, I think maybe a good answer to what you're asking me in terms of something that's just like a hobby of some sort, or like something. It's more than that, because if I do like skate, like I feel like, 'cause sometimes I'm everything I do is like at a computer and dealing with tech and that kind of stuff. Like, but to be outside and get some sun, like even if it's just for a short period of time at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, and skating around and feeling the wind and all that stuff, I think that is definitely like the sort of, I don't know if shut off my brain, but there's definitely like a meditative aspect. Right. It's more, I do think of it like sometimes more as like maybe not spiritual, but like, more of a ritual, all those things, more so than like, I'm going to rollerblade now for exercise or something like that. It's more like, I need to do this for my soul to like just see the sun.
Does it make you feel like, when you play guitar versus like rollerblading, does one make you feel like more connected to yourself?
I think they both do in different ways. And I feel like the rollerblading is something more connected to myself, because it is something that I started playing guitar in freshman year in college. So I was 18 then. So that's a couple of decades ago plus at this point. But the rollerblading and the skating and the hockey did come a little bit earlier. So there's something, I don't want to say more special, but like the fact that like I still do this thing that I did when I was like 13, 12, maybe 11 years old. And I enjoy it really just as much. Like, I kind of would like to get involved, like play maybe a roller hockey league or something. That's what I need, more distractions, whatever. But I think there's something to that. And it was something that I didn't do for a while. I didn't have skates that fit, or I didn't have skates out here. But now more recently, in the last like a year or two, I got a new pair of skates, and I try to skate a couple of times a week, sometimes more, sometimes not at all. But like, it's definitely something now that's more part of my life. And it does make it, I did have the thought like, oh, I'm sort of like rediscovering someone who I used to be, or some like prior element of me. Like, I did have that thought.
That's what I was like thinking about, like to tie this all together, is that it's kind of like with the shows we watch, it resonates a space we can't capture anymore sometimes. Like when it's like an old show or like something we did as we were growing up, it like reminds us of like a certain time in our lives, of like when we were younger, and like when we were like fun, like after school, it was like, I'm gonna go ride my bike around the neighborhood a shit ton of times. Now if somebody told me to go ride a bike around a neighborhood, I'd be like, no, I'm too tired, it's too hot, I'm not doing that. But when you do it and you feel it again, you're like, all the memories are coming back of like, oh, this time I was on my bike, or when I stopped over at this and I fell and this and that. And so that's kind of like, same with TV shows. When you're rewatching them, if you grew up on them, you're sitting there going like, oh my God, I came home from school this day and this was on, or like, oh, I was 5 years old when I saw this scene and it like stuck with me ever since. So it's definitely, it's interesting in that way, how things, I think too, like we all just crave nostalgia so much, and we don't realize we don't realize what we're doing in our day to day to like bring us back.
It's also something we share with different generations as culture, and sports for me is also a big thing. Like just growing up as a New York Mets fan, baseball team, like my dad was a fan and my grandfather was a fan. We would go together to games, and there's like such a like connection through sports for people and through sports teams. Like it definitely connects families to each other and people to each other through the generations. There's definitely a lot to that as well, for sure.
Yeah, and it makes us all feel like we're a part of something, which is what
right. That's what everyone's really searching for, to be a part of something and to have purpose. And when you don't have those things, that's when society suffers, really.
Yeah, that's when you say, we got shit to do.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this right now. We got shit to do. Okay, Adam, so tell everybody where you are on social media and all your YouTube channels and your podcasts where they can listen to you.
Thank you for the time. I enjoyed this conversation. That was just wrapped up, I guess, the conversation about you. That was just such a classic episode, and I really think it covered a lot, like, of really what Cheers is all about. And you really got a sense of every single character at that time on the show, like who they were. You knew who Diane was and being pretentious, but being in love with Sam, and still at maybe a different phase than season one, but still a little bit of the will they, won't they. He likes her. She doesn't like him. She likes her. And, they kind of have this back and forth, their egos battling each other. You definitely get a sense of that. And that wasn't even the main storyline in this particular episode.
And when they're like both like so turned on by the interview and he's like breathing heavy on her in the background, I was dying. It's so funny. Right.
For those who haven't seen, it was like Frasier and Lilith they weren't together at this point, and they liked each other but wouldn't admit it to themselves. And she's a psychiatrist like him. So they ended up going on this like TV show, this debate TV show. And basically there was a lot of sexual tension between them. And it came out in a very funny way where all the debate
on live television
had all this like sexual subtext to it. And it was just hilarious. And she was more, feminine with her hair down, and he was totally distracted by that. It's definitely a scene and an episode worth watching. And as was the scene that came later on in the bar, where they finally like admitted to each other their true feelings, and then not stormed out, but she leapt into his arms and they went out. But again, like all the other characters in that episode, it were just, all the lines are just so efficient, no wasted dialogue at all. Woody and Carla had such limited dialogue in this particular episode, but you felt like nothing was wasted. Everything was very punchy and funny. Everything they said, and the other subplots with Cliff and Norm and the fishing episode, and about they were trying to plan a fishing trip, and only Woody was genuinely wanting to go, and the other guys were kind of just talking about it, just talking basically, but not wanting to go. You really got a sense of all those characters, Cliff and Norm being like the lazy dudes, and Woody being like this sort of naive, honest, likable, enthusiastic guy who really, did want to go fishing. I think they did actually end up going fishing.
I think they did.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Sometimes I feel like I'm the Woody, but then I'm like, but I'm also the Norm. So then I'm like, well, then does that equal a Cliff?
Does a Woody and a Norm equal a Cliff? That's a good question. I think there's something to that. I don't know about it entirely, but I think maybe something to that.
I don't think I'm exactly I don't know. It's so weird to think about, but it's also interesting too. Like I loved Cheers episodes the most when it was the more will they, won't they, and not when Sam and Diane got together actually. Which
I was like that with Frasier actually, when I don't know how familiar you are with with Frasier, but with not the Niles character. And what was I just slipped
Daphne,
yeah, when they were the will they, won't they on that series. And kind of once they got together, the series did, and I don't want to say go downhill. There were still some good seasons and episodes for sure, maybe even up until to the end, but it definitely changed.
I'm like, what does that say about us as people? Do we like the chase more than the actual,
We're never satisfied.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't know. I know, but you asked me to share my social media so you could move on with the rest of your evening and life. So I appreciate your time, and the conversation was was fun. I'm Adam Choit. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter. Just search that, my name, Choit, my last name. And I have a link tree on my Instagram that pretty much has everything. My movie, theeditedmovie.com, if you want to check out that website. People We Love Podcast. It's a red logo. I'm on all the platforms. You could find it on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, all that. The audio, video, subscribe to everything. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, TEDESCHI Trucks Podcast. That's on Instagram as well, at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. Again, Adam Choit Instagram. My link tree is on there. You can find everything through that. I think that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Because again, like, you were my first podcast I ever did, and you made it so like welcoming, and so you gave me so much permission to like talk freely. And so I want to thank you again for doing that this time around. It's so interesting because you and I were friends, but we don't see each other. Like, we're friends on social media and we did a podcast together, but you've like, during me like wanting to start a podcast, you've been so helpful and so kind. So I really appreciate all of that. And I hope, we can hang out in real life soon and I can hear the Tedeschi truck.
Yeah, you definitely want to look them up. Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate it. Happy to help with whatever and share whatever limited knowledge I have accumulated over the years.
You're great. And you inspired me to do this. And you were one of the first people I reached out to because I'm like, I see how good you are at it. And I'm like, I've never been an interviewer. I've been an interviewee. So it's nice. And it's like a lesson in like really listening and like not, again, like being present, which is like something, that could be very therapeutic for me and good for me. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm happy I'm doing it.
That can get you out of your own head. That can get one out of their own head for sure.
There you go.